and that's why the sounds blend so much, and um, they almost sound like the same note, and they call the same note. If you look at these notes, the distance between the strings are all equal. So, although this is written in white notes and that one's made black and one is higher than the other, the distance between all of them are the same. The only reason they created black notes and white notes on the piano is physically easier to play. And if you would stretch them out, you could never play an octave because you would need huge hands. And if you make them too small, everybody would get stuck in between the notes. So it's more of a practical level than it reflects really how the musical element works. Now, why does it matter? This is called a half step. Half step, 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 half step. How are you in math?
All right.
Aha! There was about 500 BC, Pythagoras. You know the Pythagorean theorem?
Yeah.
The guy who came up with how you can calculate these things. Well, he was an atomist, which believes that there is the smallest particle in the world out of which everything is built. And so he truly believed that. And the atomists also believed that because you had one tiniest bit that everything else was created out of, you could find a universal theory that explained how everything would work. A universal theory of cause and effect. And they thought about it a lot, and that's kind of how he came up with the mathematical theories as well. But why he was working after that is he was trying to come up with a theory that would also explain how all the stars and everything else would move. And you'll see it ends up coming back to this instrument actually. And so they started looking at the patterns of the stars and all that. They figured that if they could perhaps figure out how they moved, and the theory they had is that they were pushed around by waves, universal waves that were governed by the same laws of math and cause and effect. That if they could have a theory that would explain how the stars moved, and it would also explain how everything else interacted and all cause and effect. And they couldn't come up with anything that worked that was non-visual. And so instead he used sound. Because he thought sound is waves, so maybe if I can come up with how explained sound works, then I can use what I learned from there and apply it to other things and see if that maybe brings me my universal theory. And so he came up with the whole idea of a concept of an octave. And then he just took that string, cut it in half, and then he started finding notes in between. Fairly random, but whatever was pleasing to the ear. And that's how he came up, instead of just having all these intervals, he put a group of 8 notes, of which the top and the bottom is the same note together. And that's called a scale. So really it was a mathematician and philosopher who came up with modern music.